The scale beauty sitting in front of me is from HPI. It's their Desert Trophy truck, and of course, it's the Ivan Stewart edition. You can't miss the trademark paint job on the outside that Ivan Stewart made famous running the desert races like the Baja 500 and Baja 1000 solo and winning many, many of these races. Now, in addition to have a ton of scale appeal on the outside, the Desert Truck series from HPI is very scale on the inside. It's a highly detailed cage underneath. Looks very realistic. Now what's cool about this truck is that it's four-wheel drive. So even though it has somewhat tame scale tires on it, you'll have plenty of traction for running down the street, across grass, dirt lots. It's not really made for the track, but I'm sure with a few changes, tire changes, maybe a little bit of suspension tuning, not really much needed on this one, you'll be fine on the track. But don't expect to find a race class for it. Another very cool feature about this vehicle is it has four-wheel independent suspension. Now, if you're into RC, you might not think four-wheel independent suspension is that big of a deal. All the short course trucks have that. That's what's typical for RC. And if you're into full-size off-road, you'd maybe think that you're losing a lot of scale appeal. Real desert trucks have solid rear axles. Whether they're two-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, they have a solid rear axle to be able to take the abuse. This one is modeled after one of the few vehicles that has four-wheel independent suspension. This original model that HPI offered was modeled after the TSA Motorsports, a good bunch of guys racing out west. They race in a lot of the Desert Series, and they built a truck, more than one truck, that has four-wheel independent suspension. So this model actually is very scale, and definitely appropriate when it has the TSA Motorsports body on it. It's still extremely cool looking and works great with the Ivan Stewart paint job. Like I said, the radio system is a simple AM radio. The brushed motor system is easy to upgrade. Some of the cool features in addition to those hard electronic parts is the knuckles are cast aluminum, so they should be pretty durable. The drivetrain is essentially 10 scale size, so it should be durable and able to withstand all sorts of bashing. Like the models that came before it, 2 spare tires are included. They're faux spare tires that kind of cut down on the weight, save all the scale realism, but you don't have too heavy tires up high, causing the truck to roll over on the turns. Underneath the body, the cage is very detailed. It also flips up to allow easier battery changes. You simply move a thumb switch and the whole cage flips up. And other than that, it's completely assembled and ready to go right out of the box. It's totally appropriate for a first RC vehicle, somebody looking into getting an off-road, or somebody who just wants the vehicle for its scale appeal. The bottom of the Desert Truck features an almost entirely smooth undercarriage, which is part of the tub design that the cage sits on top of. The front suspension on the Desert Truck is the typical lower A-arm, upper link design. Now the rear suspension is a little bit different. It has a long trailing arm, which is very cool and reminiscent of most of the Desert Truck suspensions we're used to. And then the upper suspension is an A-arm design, and the lower has a rear link that ties the whole suspension together. You might see another link in back, and this is a steering link that allows the use of the cast aluminum hubs front and rear. And this just locks up the steering, and you could replace it with an adjustable link if you wanted to mess around with adjusting the rear toe, but it really isn't needed. You could just leave it stock and as is. While this is an RTR not meant to be as loaded with features as a typical race vehicle, HPI did a really good job with this package. The shocks, you'll notice, front and rear are threaded body design, so even though they're plastic, it's really easy to adjust the ride height if you're bashing and you want a little bit more ground clearance. These shocks, typically found on a race vehicle, offer pretty good adjustability. Looks-wise, HPI definitely nailed it with the Ivan Stewart Trophy Desert Truck. The quality is also very good. It's very typical of the HPI, so there's no real surprises there. I think the electronics are an excellent match for our RTR. Even if you're a seasoned RCer and you're buying this mostly for its scale appeal, when you do use it, you're not going to be disappointed with the performance. The only thing I'd see HPI maybe changing is running changes in the future to make the model better, is I'd love them to switch to a 2.4 gigahertz radio system. They're just better, they're more reliable. You see them more and more in RTRs where you're starting to expect them. And it's a shame to have a vehicle that's this much of a scale beauty and not have a shorter antenna. This big whip antenna might have been a realistic option in the 70s, but it really doesn't fit the look of this truck right now.